So what do you do when you experience a sort of a bug in Webflow, when something is just doesn't look like the way you expect it to do? In most cases, these issues aren't actually bugs within the Webflow designer. Sometimes they might look like a bug because you think like everything is working correctly, and there's like, oh, there's something with Webflow, or there is an issue with the Webflow, or maybe something with the browser. But most often, those are just styles that you are applying inside Webflow, and they're just not behaving the way you expect them to behave. And I sort of have my own checklist that I go through when I'm trying to, let's call this a debug, how to find out what's causing the issue. And I've created this checklist. I'm going to link this checklist so you can have. And it's sort of like a few steps you can go through when you're experiencing some issue. And they will help you, I would say, about 80% of the time. They will put you in the right direction to find out what's causing an issue and how to fix it. But there are obviously some of the cases that are not going to fit this template, and you will need to dig a bit deeper. But majority of cases, this checklist is going to cover. So I have some issues here on this page that I've created, and let's go with the checklist and let's see how this works. Actually, most of these issues actually all of the issues that I've created here, they are something that I often see from my students when they're asking me questions like, what's going on? Somehow I'm trying to fix something and it's not working out, and they're very common issues that are coming from the students. So I just grabbed those common issues and applied this checklist to it to show you how it will work. Now, the number one thing, step one in the checklist, I have, if it's a spacing issue, this is only for the spacing issue, the step one, enable Xray mode and hover over different elements to find if the space is coming from some element's margin or padding. So in this case, we have a spacing issue here, right? There's this extra white space. We don't know where is it coming from, and we're trying to find out in here as well, right? So there is this Xray mode right here in the canvas settings. You can enable Xray mode, and in the Xray mode, when you hover on elements, it will show you padding and margin of that particular element. When it's green, that's padding, or when it's blue, let's see that one right there, those dashed angled lines on the side, on the bottom of it, that means it has a padding. So in this case, a heading has the bottom padding right here. And in this case, a hero section has padding. Sorry, so the heading has the margin, and the hero section has the padding. And what I like to do is actually to hover over inside the navigator, because in the navigator you will be able to cover all the elements, whereas on the canvas sometimes you will miss like a parent because they are very neatly wrapped around some element. So what you can do inside the navigator is click this icon to expand all of it. If you press once, it's going to collapse. If you press again, it's going to expand all your elements. And then wherever you are, you don't have to go all the way bottom, right? So wherever you are, find that element and start hovering over and see where it picks up and where that space gets highlighted. So in this case, heading 2 has a margin on the top, and that is causing that white space issue. So now you can go to the heading and you can see that is correct. There is 80 pixel margin on the top. And even though the section itself doesn't have that margin, it has a 0 margin, somehow the way HTML works in this case, the heading is causing this extra margin instead of it adding the space inside. So this is why this Xray mode is really nice and neat, and will show you where that space is coming from, if it's coming from margin or padding. So obviously if you change this to 0, they will go away. Same thing now with the bottom, right? This little gap here. So we go continue, and there you go. We have a paragraph that has this bottom padding, which is, sorry, again, bottom margin. And it's a default value that all paragraphs have in my case in here, probably in all the cases because it's a tag. Change it to 0, and there you go. Now all that space is gone. So now that was an issue where step 1 works because it's a spacing issue. Now, sometimes it is a spacing issue, but it's not going to work. So for example, here, again, it's a spacing issue. We have this paragraph. This is something actually happens frequently with my students. They send me their version of the site that they're working on, and they will have this odd spacing on paragraphs and text, and they don't understand where the hell is this coming from. So if you do the Xray here, you're not going to get anything. So I'm not going to even bother to go through the whole. You're not going to get this space filled up as a margin or a padding. So step 1 doesn't work. We have to go to step 2. Now in the step 2, we have remove the class from the suspect to see if the issue disappears. If it does, then skip to step 6. So in our case, I think it's quite easy to identify who's the suspect of this issue, which would be the paragraph. Sometimes it looks like it, but they're not. We have steps for that too. So paragraph is the suspect. So what we're going to do is we're not going to try to find out what's here, what is the class, what is that style that can be causing this. We're not going to do that. We're going to remove the class temporarily, remove class, and bam, it was fixed. So now we know 100% that this class is causing this issue. So I'm just gonna hit undo with Control Z, Command Z, or by doing this here, undo. And so we know it's this class, which means it's one of the styles within this panel, either blue styles or orange styles. Usually it's going to the ones that are highlighted blue because they are the ones that are being directly directly affecting this element. So in my step, it says, if it does, then skip to step 6. So let's go to step 6. What does this say? Once you identify the class that's causing the issue, put the class back on the element. We did that. And start resetting each style that is in blue color. You should be able to find a particular style that is causing the issue. There you go. So what we'll do now is, we don't know what is it. I don't even understand how, let's say, Webflow or HTML and CSS works. So I'm just going to blindly go and remove all of this. I don't even have to understand. Without even understanding, this will tell me which style is causing the issue. So I'll go reset. I'll go reset. Nothing. It's not fixing. And I'm going to just use the shortcut here, which is Option click in my case. It's probably Alt click on Windows computers. And I'll just continue doing this. All right, still nothing. There's another blue here. Bam. Okay, so now we know. I'm going to undo. Now we know it's exactly this style that is causing the issue. And let's see, height 160 pixels. So even if you don't understand why this is causing, and it seems like it's a correct thing, you can play with a value. Most often you will get it why this is causing it. But if not, just change it. When you do the reset, it will also tell you the clue of what's the correct value that doesn't cause this issue. So if I reset this, now we see, okay, it says 161%. Ah, okay. So in my case, in this case, it's 160 pixels. So it seems like this pixel, it being pixel causing an issue, which is true in this case because percentage of a line height is calculated 160%, means 160 of the height font size is relative to the font size, but 160 pixels is not relative, it's an absolute value, which means that space here, that space has to be 160 pixels. That's why it's so huge. So you can just change it to 160%, right? And that's fixed. Now, sometimes, let's go to another issue. So we have this issue where this was actually submitted by one of my students, I remember. The issue here is that these buttons are not aligned to the left. And if we go through all these methods and see the Xray mode, nothing is going to come up. And if we go with, okay, so for example, this is the button. We are suspecting that it's a button is causing this. So we do this method from the step 2, which is remove the class. So we remove, there's 2 classes here, one combo class, right? So we remove one of them. Okay, nothing. We remove another one, still nothing. Okay, so when I do this, I usually return them. So we know it's not the button itself. So what does the step 3 say? Since removing a class on the suspect element didn't help, that means the issue is coming from some other element. Start by removing classes from the direct parent, then parent's parent, all the way including the body element until you remove the class that makes the issue disappear. If you find the buggy class, then skip to step 6. So again, we're doing the same thing, which is we need to find the class on one of the parents or whatever the element is causing this and remove it. And once we remove it, we'll see that it's going to fix it. And then within that class, we'll find the style that is causing the issue. So we know it's not the element itself. So we have to go to the parent. So easy way to go through the parent of something is just to look at this navigation bar here. You have a button is selected. And it now shows you the hierarchy of where the button is sitting in the hierarchy of the tree. So it's like a family tree. So the first parent is DivBlock, then a grandparent is Flexbox, great-grandparent container, and so on until the body. So we start with the first parent, which is DivBlock. All right, and we'll try to remove class. Okay, nothing. No, it's not, definitely not this DivBlock class. So I do undo so we can return it back. So now we go to this next parent, which is Flexbox. So we try in the Flexbox, we have 2 classes here, remove one, nothing, remove another one, let's see, still nothing. So let's undo this, put it back. Now next parent, container, let's see, remove, oh, there you go. So it is the container class that is causing the issue. So whatever the step was here, right? Skip to step 6. We go to the step 6, which is to reset all the classes that are in blue. Start again. Option click, nothing, nothing. Oh, there you go. So I'll just return all of those other classes back. And now let's see. So align, when we reset it, goes to align to the left. And when it's on the center, so for some reason, and you don't have to understand this at this moment, you will at some point understand most of the issues why they're causing. And but often you'll see, okay, so I just need to set this to the left alignment and problem is fixed. Now the reason why this is happening, just to give you an idea if you're curious, it's because container has text alignment center, which means whatever text element is inside container, and doesn't have to be directly, right? It doesn't have to be directly, it can be any of the grandchildren inside, and it will inherit this value, and that means that all the text elements that are text-like will be centered. Will be centered. Now, why is that applying to the button? Because buttons are inline block. Inline block behaves like sort of like a text, which means it's not a block level which spreads from one edge to another. It's inline block, which has the border. It's the edge of it is defined either by the width or by the content inside, and they do behave sort of like text. And that's why you are able to put two inline block elements like button and the other one button here next to each other, because they do behave sort of like text and they are allowed to go on the same line. Inline means in the same line. And so issue is easy to fix here, right? Left align, or just, oops, I was doing this on div block. No, it's on the container. You can reset it, issue fixed. So that's, and I believe I only have one last issue left that will cover other instances. So we covered steps 3, and if the issue isn't coming from any of the parents, then it might be coming from children or siblings. And this is the case, for example, with this element. So we have this image and it's not growing, it's very small. We wanted to fill up most of the space, but it's not happening. Now we start with an image, we think, okay, image is very small, probably issues from the image. And we start with the same process, removing the class. This image doesn't even have a class, so it can be that image. In this case, sometimes there is one instance, and this can be from the settings. So unlike most of other elements, image elements, they have an extra place where you can mess with how they are displayed, and you have this width and height settings inside image settings. So that's one thing can be edited without you editing any of the styles. So in our case, it's not that, it's not the class. Then we go where? To our parent. And I'm not going to go through all of that because it's not there. So what we're going to do is we're going to check as this shows children or siblings. So image, this is not going to show us neither children or siblings. So we have to use the navigator to see what's the children or siblings of the element. In our case, image doesn't have any children, it doesn't have any siblings, it's just a one lonely single child of a right block. So since image doesn't have children or siblings, what you're going to do is you're going to go to the parent and then check the siblings of the parent. So parent is right block and the sibling is left block. And so what you do here is you'll remove the classes from left block because that's the sibling of the parent. So we'll see if that fixes the issue, which it does. So we know now that it's this combo class that is causing an issue. But when you go through this combo class, you'll see there is none of the styles are in blue. So what does our checklist say about that? Once you identify the class that's causing the issue, put the class back on the element and start with it. Okay. So we did this where there are no blue classes. So what we need to do, if resetting blue styles, we go to the step 7. If resetting blue styles didn't help or there are no blue styles, then start resetting the styles in orange color. Because the orange color, the styles that are in orange, they are also changing something about the element. Although they are not directly resettable because they are being inherited somewhere from the combo class, somewhere from the parent, and so on. Often this is the case when you're working with responsive versions. Here, most of the things are in orange because they are being inherited from the desktop. So it's so this is the method that you will usually want to do in the responsive, where you don't see any of the blue, so you have to start resetting the orange styles. Now resetting here, there is no option to reset. So what you have to do is find out what would be the default value and just change it manually to that default value. So with the margins and paddings, it's easy. You know it's always 0. You just change it to 0. And you see this is not going to do anything. Then you go to the width settings, size settings. Here it's a bit different. Each one has a different sort of default value. You'll see that width and height, they have auto as their defaults, but minimum has, and you can check, since this is filled up and you don't know what's the default for minimum, you can check this based on the minimum height. It's a 0 pixel. So 0 pixel is the default of minimum heights and widths. So you can change it to 0 and bam, that's the issue. Now we know that issue was coming from minimum width. Why? Okay, now we can understand. So it has a minimum width of 800 pixels, which means it's being persistently stretching beyond that it needs to, and it's pushing the image, and image doesn't have any space for it to grow. Now that's why, to fix this issue, then you start shrinking this to a better size so image has space to grow. And that's it. So this is end of the all the issues that I'm demonstrating here, and it shows most of the issues. There is one more step that I didn't cover, and this is usually when you're dealing with something like a navbar or some components that are coming from the Webflow's Elements panel. And if you go through all of the steps and you did this and you did the orange reset, you did everything, it's still not working, then there is one last step you'll want to do, and which is you add that element or a component from scratch. For example, if you're experiencing an issue with a navbar and you did everything, all the steps that we've done, and still nothing, then what you'll do is you'll add a completely brand new, where's the navbar? Navbar. And you sort of position it in the same place where that navbar is supposed to be, and you start checking if this now is completely new navbar has the same issues or not. So you'll see if the completely brand new number has the same issues, then the issue cannot be with the navbar. That means it's some other parent element or something about the body. Sometimes styles can be changed on the body element here or from the body elements tag, and that's going to cause some issues down the line, or some parent, and you know. Or if you see that the issue is not happening with the navbar, then you start recreating the navbar step by step, and you check every time to make sure that you identify the moment you make some change here to match your new the older navbar, the styled navbar, and you identify, okay, which one of the classes made the mistake in causing the issue. And often you'll see that it's not going to be from the styles, and it can be from things like setting or things like the navigator where something is missing, maybe an icon is missing, or maybe one of these elements is missing from there. But at least we will be able to, even if you don't identify what's exactly causing the issue, you will be able to get unstuck. So you're not wasting your time. You'll be able to, okay, you know what, I'm just going to start from scratch. I have this old one here, and I'll start applying the same content and same style, and I will recreate it and just check step by step to make sure that I don't go too far before making a mistake. That's it. That's all there is, and this will help you with a lot of your issues and will save you a lot of time and headache. So go through the checklist. Hopefully most of your issues will be identified using the checklist.